November 1943. Betio Island, Tarawa Atoll. A Marine corporal crouches at the entrance to a reinforced bunker 30 yards from the beach, where his company has taken 60% casualties. Inside that concrete fortress, Japanese defenders wait with rifles ready, prepared to sell their lives according to Bushido tradition. The corporal doesn't throw a grenade. He doesn't call for a flamethrower. Instead, he raises a Winchester Model 12 shotgun and fires 3 times in rapid succession. Chack-boom, chack-boom, chack-boom. Working the pump action so fast, the reports blend into a continuous thunder. 54 lead pellets ricochet off concrete walls inside that bunker. The defenders who survive the first volley stumble into daylight, hands raised, choosing surrender over the metallic hell of buckshot caromming through their fortification. This scene repeated itself across the Pacific theater, yet the Winchester Model 12 remains one of World War II's most misunderstood weapons. Popular culture portrays it as ubiquitous. Every Marine supposedly carried one. Historical reality tells a different story, one of limited numbers creating disproportionate impact through tactical innovation and psychological dominance. Part 1. The weapon. Germany tried to ban the Winchester Model. 12's military legacy didn't begin in the Pacific. It started 25 years earlier in the muddy trenches of France, where American doughboys introduced a weapon that German commanders found so devastating they attempted diplomatic intervention. John Browning's original design appeared in 1893 as the Winchester Model 1893 pump-action shotgun. Winchester improved the design repeatedly, culminating in the Model 1897, which became the first pump-action shotgun to achieve widespread success. Then, in 1912, Winchester engineer Thomas Crossley Johnson refined the concept further, creating the Model 12. Johnson's masterpiece incorporated several innovations that made it ideal for military use, though Winchester marketed it exclusively to hunters and sportsmen. The action was butter-smooth, cycling with minimal resistance. The trigger mechanism lacked a disconnector, the safety feature that prevents firing until the action fully closes and the trigger releases. This defect was actually intentional engineering. Hold the trigger down while pumping, and the gun fires the instant the bolt closes. Experienced operators could empty a 6-shell magazine in under 3 seconds. When America entered World War I in 1917, the Army Ordnance Department searched for effective trench-clearing weapons. German stormtroopers had pioneered infiltration tactics, and American commanders needed tools for close-quarters combat in trench systems. Someone remembered the Winchester Model 1897's effectiveness with American police forces. The military ordered Model 1897 shotguns modified with perforated heat shields and bayonet lugs, creating what soldiers called trench guns. These weapons proved devastatingly effective in the confined spaces of trench warfare. A single soldier with a trench gun could clear a trench segment faster than a squad with rifles. German military observers took note. On September 14, 1918, the German government transmitted a formal protest through neutral Swiss diplomatic channels. The document, preserved in National Archives records, stated in unmistakable terms that shotgun use violated the laws and customs of war on land annexed to the Fourth Hague Convention of October 18, 1907, specifically Article 23E, prohibiting arms, projectiles, or material calculated to cause unnecessary suffering. Germany's protest included a threat: any American soldier captured with a shotgun or shotgun ammunition would be executed. Secretary of State Robert Lansing's September 1918 reply demolished the German argument. The United States government pointed out that shotguns caused no more suffering than rifle bullets and considerably less than many weapons Germany itself employed. Furthermore, Lansing warned that executing American prisoners for carrying shotguns would constitute a war crime, inviting immediate reprisals against German prisoners. Germany never executed captured Americans for possessing shotguns. More importantly, the exchange established legal precedent. Shotguns were legitimate weapons of war under international law. The Model 1897 served effectively through the war's end, but by 1918, Winchester had already moved beyond it. The Model 12, introduced 6 years earlier, represented superior engineering, tighter tolerances, smoother action, and exceptional reliability. When World War II approached, the Model 12 was the obvious choice for military adaptation. Part 2. Japanese doctrine meets American pragmatism. Imperial, Japan's military strategy in the Pacific rested on assumptions developed through decades of conflict in Asia. Japanese planners had studied Western forces extensively and believed they understood their weaknesses. Japanese Field Service Code, distributed to all officers and many enlisted men, emphasized spiritual superiority over material factors. "Regard for material things must be light as a feather," one passage read, while "duty must be heavy as a mountain." This wasn't mere propaganda. It reflected genuine conviction within the Japanese military establishment that fighting spirit could overcome material disadvantages. Japanese tactical doctrine, codified in manuals captured and translated by U.S. intelligence, prioritized two approaches where Japanese forces held perceived advantages: night combat and close quarters fighting. The night combat emphasis was systematic. Japanese infantry trained extensively in darkness, learning to navigate without light, recognize friendly forces by touch, and infiltrate enemy positions silently. Operations manuals distinguished between multiple types of night attacks, each with specific purposes and methods. Japanese commanders believed Americans, accustomed to electric lights and mechanical conveniences, were psychologically unprepared for sustained night operations. Close combat doctrine complemented night operations. Japanese training devoted extensive time to bayonet fighting and hand-to-hand combat. Every Japanese soldier learned traditional blade techniques. Officers carried ancestral swords into battle, not as ceremony, but as weapons they trained to use. The assumption was clear: when combat closed to arm's length, Japanese soldiers would dominate through superior spirit and technique. These weren't baseless assumptions. Japanese forces had validated these tactics repeatedly. In China, night attacks and close combat had routed numerically superior Chinese armies. At Singapore in February 1942, aggressive night operations and close-quarters fighting had shattered British defenses, forcing the surrender of 85,000 Commonwealth troops to a Japanese force half that size. In the Philippines, similar tactics had overwhelmed American and Filipino defenders. Japanese military planners extrapolated from these successes. If Americans collapsed in close combat like the British and faltered in night operations like the Chinese, then Japanese defensive strategy should channel American attacks into exactly those situations. This strategic assessment contained a catastrophic blind spot. Japanese planners assumed American forces would fight like other Western armies they'd encountered. They failed to anticipate American tactical flexibility and, crucially, America's willingness to deploy specialized weapons optimized for specific combat scenarios. The Model 12 represented thinking antithetical to Japanese doctrine. Rather than emphasizing spiritual preparation for close combat, Americans approached it as an engineering problem. How do you deliver maximum projectiles on target in minimum time at distances under 50 yards? The answer was a 30-year-old pump-action shotgun designed for duck hunting. Part 3. Guadalcanal to New Georgia, Learning Curves. When the 1st Marine Division assaulted Guadalcanal on August 7, 1942, they carried Winchester Model 12 shotguns distributed primarily to non-commissioned officers, point men, and troops assigned to security details. Exactly how many Model 12s landed at Guadalcanal remains uncertain. Equipment manifests listed riot guns without specifying quantities, but evidence confirms their presence. The early engagements on Guadalcanal didn't immediately showcase shotgun effectiveness. The initial landings faced minimal opposition. Japanese forces had concentrated inland. Marines secured the airfield, soon renamed Henderson Field, with relatively light casualties. Then Japanese reinforcements arrived, and the nature of combat shifted. Colonel Kiyonao Ichiki landed 916 men of his detachment on Guadalcanal with orders to recapture Henderson Field. Ichiki, veteran of combat in China and confident in Japanese night attack doctrine, planned a straightforward assault across the Ilu River, mistakenly called the Tenaru in American reports, under cover of darkness. The attack launched on August 21, 1942. Ichiki's force charged across a sandbar at the river mouth, exactly the type of close-quarters night operation Japanese doctrine prescribed as most effective against American forces. The battle lasted 6 hours. By dawn, approximately 800 of Ichiki's 916 men lay dead. American casualties: 44 killed, 71 wounded. Marine machine guns and artillery inflicted most casualties, but the close-range fighting saw Model 12s employed in their intended role. After-action reports noted that all available weapons proved effective, with specific commendation for increased firepower at close range. While this doesn't exclusively reference shotguns, veterans' accounts confirm Model 12s were fired extensively during the melee. What made the difference? Japanese soldiers charging through darkness expected to engage with rifles and bayonets. Instead, they encountered Marines who could fire 6 rounds in 3 seconds, each round spreading 9 pellets across a 30-inch pattern. The mathematics were brutal. A single Marine with a Model 12 could put more lead downrange in 3 seconds than a Japanese soldier could fire from his bolt-action Arisaka rifle in a full minute. The Ilu River engagement taught Marines several lessons about shotgun employment. First, the weapons excelled in defensive positions where engagement ranges were predictable. Second, the psychological impact of massed shotgun fire, the thunder of multiple guns firing in rapid sequence, appeared to disrupt Japanese attacks, causing hesitation that proved fatal. Third, and perhaps most important, the Model 12's reliability under stress exceeded expectations. While some rifles jammed in the mud and chaos, shotguns kept functioning. As fighting on Guadalcanal continued through fall 1942, Marine units refined their shotgun tactics. Patrols into the jungle learned to position shotgun-armed Marines behind point men, ready to deliver instant suppressive fire if ambushed. Night defensive positions incorporated shotguns as primary weapons against infiltration attempts. Marines discovered that firing at ground level when defending against crawlers maximized buckshot's ricochet effect, turning hard coral soil into an asset. The campaign for New Georgia in mid-1943 saw further tactical evolution. The island's dense jungle presented different challenges than Guadalcanal's more open terrain. Visibility dropped to yards or feet. Ambushes could materialize instantly from impenetrable vegetation. Shotguns proved ideally suited to this environment. The spread pattern compensated for imprecise target acquisition through foliage. A Marine couldn't always see enemy soldiers in the jungle undergrowth, but buckshot didn't need precision. It needed general direction. Point men increasingly carried Model 12s instead of rifles, accepting reduced range for superior close-quarters firepower. Marines also discovered innovative techniques. Vegetation stripping involved firing smaller birdshot loads into suspected ambush positions, shredding foliage to expose hidden enemies. Sound shooting, firing at noise rather than visible targets, became standard practice, relying on the spread pattern to hit what couldn't be seen. These innovations didn't come from training manuals. They emerged from combat experience, passed along through informal networks of veterans teaching new arrivals. The Marine Corps encouraged this bottom-up innovation, incorporating proven techniques into official training rather than imposing rigid doctrine from above. Part 4. The Cave Problem. Tarawa, in November 1943, introduced American forces to a problem that would dominate Pacific warfare: fortified defensive positions that naval bombardment couldn't destroy. Peleliu Island, Tarawa's main objective, measured just 291 acres. The Japanese had transformed it into a fortress, constructing hundreds of reinforced bunkers, pillboxes, and fortified positions using concrete, steel, coconut logs, and coral rock. Rear Admiral Keiji Shibasaki commanded the defense and famously boasted that 1,000,000 men cannot take Tarawa in 100 years. The initial bombardment, 3 hours of naval gunfire and aerial bombing, appeared devastating from offshore. When Marines landed, they discovered most Japanese positions remained intact, defenders ready to fight from reinforced cover. The battle for Tarawa cost 1,696 American casualties, including 1,009 killed in 76 hours of combat. The Japanese garrison of approximately 4,500 was virtually annihilated. Only 17 Japanese soldiers and 129 Korean laborers surrendered. Tarawa taught brutal lessons about fortified positions. Naval gunfire and bombs could destroy exposed troops and equipment, but reinforced structures required intimate assault. That meant Marines had to approach bunkers directly and eliminate defenders at ranges measured in feet. Model 12 shotguns found their niche in this horrifying work. The standard technique evolved through necessity. Assault teams approached bunkers using any available cover while supporting fires suppressed Japanese defensive shooting. At the bunker entrance, Marines used what they called the shotgun blast technique. Rapid-fire multiple shells into the opening, then immediately follow with grenades or demolitions. The buckshot's behavior in confined spaces exceeded expectations. Instead of simply traveling straight, pellets ricocheted off concrete and steel interior surfaces. 9 pellets entering a bunker became dozens of projectiles, bouncing unpredictably through the enclosed space. Japanese soldiers described the sound as uniquely terrifying, a metallic shrieking accompanied by the sharp cracks of pellets striking hard surfaces. Even when buckshot didn't achieve direct hits, the ricocheting pellets created a suppressive effect. Japanese defenders would retreat to interior chambers or exit through alternative openings, creating opportunities for Marines to employ other weapons. The Central Pacific Campaign escalated this pattern. Kwajalein in February 1944, Saipan in June, and Peleliu in September each featured increasingly sophisticated Japanese fortifications. By Peleliu, Japanese engineers had transformed natural coral cave systems into elaborate defensive networks with multiple entrances, interconnecting tunnels, and offset chambers designed to limit American weapon effectiveness. Colonel Kunio Nakagawa, commanding Peleliu's defense, had studied American tactics from previous battles. His defensive plan specifically countered flamethrowers and demolitions by creating angled entrances and offset chambers. Direct-fire weapons couldn't reach deep into these systems. Marines adapted. They developed skip shooting, deliberately banking buckshot off tunnel walls to shoot around corners. The technique required understanding angles and ricochet patterns, skills some Marines developed through experimentation and shared with their units. They also combined ammunition types tactically. A common sequence involved firing buckshot to clear the entrance and immediate interior, then switching to solid slugs for precision shots at specific targets deeper in the cave, then returning to buckshot for final clearing. This required Marines to load shells in specific sequences and remember what they'd chambered. The psychological warfare aspect became increasingly important. Marines learned that firing several shells into a cave, then waiting silently, often produced results. Japanese defenders, rattled by the ricochet effect and uncertain whether Marines were about to assault, would sometimes attempt to escape through alternate exits, where other Marines waited. Part 5. The Industrial Reality. Popular perception holds that Marines extensively used shotguns throughout the Pacific War. The statistical reality tells a more nuanced story. Winchester manufactured exactly 61,014 Model 12 shotguns under military contract during World War II. An additional 19,027 civilian Model 12s were refurbished or modified for military use, but these were existing weapons repurposed, not new production. 61,000 weapons distributed across a military of 12 million personnel meant the Model 12 was a specialized tool, not standard issue. For comparison, the United States produced approximately 4.2 million M1 Garand rifles, 700,000 M1 carbines, and hundreds of thousands of Browning automatic rifles during the same period. Distribution further diluted concentration. The Army, Navy, Marine Corps, and Army Air Forces all received Model 12s. The Air Forces used them for airfield security. The Navy employed them for ship defense and landing party operations. Army units received allocations for close combat specialists. This meant that even in Marine rifle companies, the units most associated with Pacific combat, Model 12s equipped only select personnel. A typical Marine rifle company of 250 men might have 6 to 10 shotguns, concentrated with squad leaders, point men, and troops assigned to specific duties like cave clearing or night defense. The limited numbers actually enhanced effectiveness in several ways. First, shotguns went to personnel most likely to face close combat situations. Random distribution would have wasted specialized capability. Second, concentrated assignment allowed focused training. Marines who received Model 12s trained specifically with them rather than treating them as secondary weapons. Third, specialized assignment created informal networks of expertise. Shotgun-armed Marines shared techniques and tactics among themselves. Ammunition supply presented different challenges. Shotgun shells are significantly bulkier than rifle cartridges. A Marine could carry 200 rounds of .30-06 rifle ammunition in the same space as 50 shotgun shells. Weight compounded the problem. Shotgun shells are heavier per round than rifle cartridges. Military contracts for shotgun ammunition ran into millions of shells, ensuring adequate supply for units that needed them. The standard military load was 0 buckshot, 9 .33 caliber pellets per shell, with solid slugs and smaller shot sizes available for specific purposes. Marines developed carrying systems to manage ammunition bulk. Elastic loops on belts and bandoliers became standard. Some fashioned custom carriers from salvaged materials. The need to reload frequently in combat drove innovation. Marines learned to carry loose shells in pockets arranged for quick access, developing techniques for rapid reloading even in darkness or under fire. The industrial disparity between America and Japan extended beyond weapon production to every aspect of military capability. American forces could afford specialized weapons for specific situations. Japanese forces struggled to provide basic equipment. By 1945, Japanese soldiers were fielding bamboo spears alongside rifles, not ceremonial weapons, Actual combat equipment issued because rifle production couldn't meet demand. Japanese ammunition quality deteriorated throughout the war as skilled workers died and raw materials grew scarce. American forces, conversely, disposed of slightly corroded ammunition rather than risk malfunctions, while Japanese soldiers counted every cartridge. This material disparity meant that even limited numbers of specialized American weapons could create disproportionate impact. The 61,014 Model 12 shotguns represented industrial capacity to produce weapons with narrow tactical applications while simultaneously manufacturing millions of general-purpose weapons. Japan couldn't match this capability at any production level. Part 6. Iwo Jima and Okinawa, The Ultimate Test, February 19, 1945. Iwo Jima. General Tadamichi Kuribayashi had spent months transforming the 8-square-mile island into the most sophisticated defensive system ever constructed. 11 miles of tunnels connected over 1,500 caves, pillboxes, and fortified positions. Kuribayashi had studied American tactics from previous battles and designed his defenses to counter them specifically. Cave entrances were angled to prevent direct fire. Multiple exits prevented entrapment. Interior chambers were offset to limit explosive and flamethrower effectiveness. Positions provided interlocking fields of fire while remaining mutually supporting through underground tunnels. Kuribayashi forbade banzai charges, ordering defenders to extract maximum American casualties through disciplined defensive fighting. The battle lasted 36 days. American casualties exceeded 26,000, including nearly 7,000 killed. Of approximately 21,000 Japanese defenders, only 216 were captured, most unconscious or too wounded to resist. Iwo Jima became the definitive test of American cave-clearing tactics, including Model 12 employment. The scale of fortifications and the determination of defenders pushed every weapon system to its limits. Marines developed what they called blowtorch and corkscrew tactics. Flamethrowers provided the blowtorch, burning out positions and consuming oxygen. Demolitions, small arms fire, and weapons like the Model 12 served as the corkscrew, penetrating prepared defenses through systematic application of firepower. Shotguns found specific roles in this integrated approach. During the initial assault phase, when Marines couldn't bring heavy weapons to bear, Model 12s provided immediate fire superiority at close range. In the grinding cave-clearing operations that dominated the battle, shotguns supplemented flamethrowers and demolitions. The skip shooting technique developed at Peleliu became standard procedure. Marines would fire buckshot to ricochet around corners and through offset chambers, forcing defenders to retreat into successive defensive positions. Combined with smoke grenades and white phosphorus, this created intolerable conditions that drove Japanese soldiers from positions that were nearly impregnable to direct assault. The psychological impact remained significant. Veterans reported that the sound of shotgun fire in the volcanic caves of Iwo Jima created distinctive acoustic effects. Amplified reports followed by the metallic ringing of buckshot striking rock. Japanese survivors described this as psychologically devastating, creating sensory overload that degraded combat effectiveness. Okinawa, beginning April 1, 1945, represented the largest amphibious operation in the Pacific. General Mitsuru Ushijima commanded 100,000 Japanese troops defending an island only 60 miles long. Unlike Iwo Jima's volcanic rock, Okinawa's southern terrain featured limestone ridges honeycombed with natural caves that Japanese engineers had expanded and fortified. The 82-day campaign saw full maturation of American combined arms tactics. By Okinawa, every Marine rifle company understood how to integrate different weapon systems for maximum effectiveness. Shotguns had defined roles in the tactical toolbox, understood by everyone from privates to generals. Standard operating procedures by Okinawa reflected 3 years of combat evolution. Assault teams included specific weapons for specific purposes: bars for suppression, flamethrowers for burning out positions, demolitions for destroying fortifications, and shotguns for close-range assault and cave clearing. The weapons operated in coordinated sequences. Bars would suppress a position while flamethrower operators approached. After flamethrower employment, shotgun-armed Marines would advance to clear any surviving defenders. Demolition teams would then seal or destroy the position permanently. This systematic approach reduced American casualties while maintaining offensive momentum. The tactical innovations developed partially around weapons like the Model 12 enabled American forces to reduce Japanese fortified positions more efficiently than in earlier campaigns. Part 7. The Enemy Perspective. Japanese military records and post-war interrogations provide insight into how Japanese forces perceived American close combat weapons, including shotguns. Captured documents reveal that Japanese tactical intelligence identified American advantages in firepower and material, but consistently underestimated American tactical adaptability. Japanese analyses noted American reliance on mechanical warfare and assumed this created inflexibility, that Americans needed prepared positions and couldn't adapt to fluid combat. This assessment proved catastrophically wrong. Post-war interrogations of Japanese survivors revealed significant psychological impact from American close combat weapons. Multiple subjects specifically mentioned shotguns as particularly frightening weapons. The distinctive sound of pump-action cycling, the visible effect of buckshot striking multiple targets simultaneously, and the effectiveness in confined spaces all created fear disproportionate to the weapon's actual numbers. One captured officer's diary, translated by American intelligence, described his first encounter with Marine shotguns during a night infiltration attempt. The sound was unlike rifle fire. A deep boom followed by metal striking all around. 3 men fell from one shot. We could not understand this weapon. Japanese forces attempted various countermeasures. Some units experimented with improvised body armor, wooden planks or multiple layers of cloth, designed to stop buckshot. These proved cumbersome and only marginally effective, as buckshot could still cause disabling injuries to exposed areas, and solid slugs penetrated most improvised armor entirely. Tactical adaptations included trying to maintain engagement distances beyond shotgun range, using obstacles and terrain to prevent American close approach, and targeting identifiable shotgun-armed troops preferentially. The last tactic had limited success because Marines learned to conceal shotguns until needed, and in the chaos of close combat, distinguishing weapon types was nearly impossible. Some Japanese commanders attempted to capitalize on the shotgun's limited range by positioning defenses to force engagements beyond 50 yards. This worked only in open terrain. In jungle or cave environments, engagement ranges collapsed regardless of defensive planning. The fundamental problem Japanese forces faced was material. They lacked industrial capacity to match American firepower at any range, forcing continued reliance on tactics that brought them into close-quarters combat, exactly where American specialized weapons like the Model 12 excelled. Interestingly, despite the Model 12's effectiveness, Japan never filed a formal protest similar to Germany's 1918 complaint. This absence likely reflects several factors. Japan's own conduct violated numerous international conventions, making protests hypocritical. Deteriorating diplomatic channels left few options for formal complaints, and by the time shotguns proved particularly devastating, Japan faced imminent defeat regardless of specific weapons employed. Part 8. Legacy and Lessons. The Winchester Model. 12's service didn't end with Japanese surrender. The weapons remained in U.S. military inventory through the Korean War, where they again proved effective in close combat and trench warfare. In Vietnam, Model 12s equipped pointmen on jungle patrols and troops assigned to tunnel-clearing operations, directly applying lessons learned 20 years earlier in the Pacific. The tactical innovations developed around Model 12 employment influenced American military doctrine permanently. Emphasis on combined arms at small unit level, integration of specialized weapons for specific situations, and bottom-up tactical innovation all became hallmarks of American military culture. Modern military shotguns trace their lineage directly to the Model 12's Pacific service. The emphasis on reliability over sophistication, the pump-action mechanism's proven durability in harsh conditions, and the weapon's role as specialized tools rather than primary arms all reflect lessons learned in World War II. The broader lessons extend beyond specific weapons. Tactical innovation. The most effective tactics emerged from combat users, not planners. Marines who discovered skip shooting or vegetation stripping techniques shared them informally, creating rapid tactical evolution that formal doctrine couldn't match. Specialized versus general purpose. The Model 12 excelled in specific situations while having clear limitations. Military forces must balance specialized capabilities with general-purpose requirements, understanding that no weapon optimizes for all scenarios. Industrial base, producing 61,014 specialized weapons while manufacturing millions of general-purpose weapons demonstrated industrial capacity that Japan couldn't match. Tactical innovation requires logistical support. Specialized weapons need specialized ammunition, training, and doctrine. Combined arms. Integration. The Model 12's effectiveness depended on integration with other weapons. Shotguns didn't win battles independently. They provided specific capabilities within larger tactical frameworks. Psychological factors. Weapons' psychological impact often exceeds their physical effects. The Model 12's distinctive sound, visible effects, and reputation all contributed to effectiveness beyond simple ballistics. Conclusion: the weapon that proved a point. The Winchester Model. 12 entered the Pacific War as a 30-year-old duck-hunting design and emerged as a proven combat weapon. Its employment demonstrated American military flexibility, industrial capacity, and willingness to apply any effective tool to tactical problems. Japanese military doctrine emphasized spiritual factors and individual warrior skills while underestimating American material superiority and tactical adaptability. The Model 12, simple in design but devastating in application, embodied the pragmatic American approach to warfare. Identify the problem, find the most effective solution, produce it in quantity, and train people to use it effectively. 61,000 shotguns among millions of weapons represented a tiny fraction of American firepower. Yet they created disproportionate impact through concentrated employment, innovative tactics, and psychological dominance. From Guadalcanal's jungles to Okinawa's caves, the distinctive sound of pump-action cycling marked American tactical evolution. Marines who carried Model 12s into combat demonstrated that industrial democracy could develop and employ specialized weapons for specific tactical challenges. The weapon that Germany had protested as inhumane in 1918 proved to be exactly what its users always knew, an effective tool for close-range combat. Nothing more, nothing less. Japanese infantry, never expected Winchester Model 12 trench guns to slam fire through their defenses because such weapons violated their fundamental assumptions about warfare. That spirit could overcome material. That fighting skill could counter industrial production. That tactical doctrine established in China would prevail against all opponents. They discovered otherwise, one thundering pump-action cycle at a time. The Model 12 story is ultimately about adaptation and innovation. A civilian hunting weapon became a military tool. Untrained civilians became Marines who developed cave-clearing techniques through necessity. A nation that had never fought in the Pacific created tactical doctrine that systematically dismantled the most sophisticated defenses ever constructed. In the brutal arithmetic of the Pacific War, the Model 12 added its weight to American victory, not through overwhelming numbers, but through specialized effectiveness, tactical innovation, and the simple pragmatic principle that guided American warfare. Use what works. The transformation was complete. American forces had mastered not just individual weapons, but the systematic application of firepower, technology, training, and innovation to overcome any challenge, defeat any defense, and achieve victory through material superiority combined with tactical flexibility. That lesson, learned in jungles and caves across the Pacific, remains relevant to warfare today.